Hey, hey, what's going on, RotoBallers? Welcome to another episode of the Roto Revolution, another live show tonight, talking about wide receivers, our start-sit video. Hopefully everyone out there is having a great night. Thanks for tuning in. If you're out there watching, but this video is already dropped and it's no longer live, make sure you do drop your comments below, and we'll make sure that we get to those as quickly as possible. Make sure you hit me up on Twitter at krich1532. I can respond to you a little bit faster there than I can in the comments here, so make sure you also get to me there if you can. But once again, thanks for tuning in tonight. Really appreciate it. Talking wide receivers for Week 15, and if you're still playing right now, it means you're in the dead heat of your fantasy football playoffs, and that's good news. So let's get you set up so we can hopefully get you a win and on to the championship round this week. And again, as I said before, if you play in Week 17, don't do that anymore. Get your championship in Week 16. That is by far the best. So thanks again for tuning in tonight. Really appreciate it. I'm going to talk through some wide receivers here really quick, and then we will get going. Again, we'll also be taking some questions in the chat as well. So drop your questions about wide receivers. Hit that like button if you could. Also, really appreciate it. Let's jump into it here. Let's start where we're just going to go right down the list. Again, doing a little bit differently this week, talking about all the matchups and different players within those matchups. So let's start with our Thursday night game, LA Chargers at Kansas City Chiefs. Going to be a good one. Talked about this one last night on the running back show a little bit in depth because I've heard there could be some weather issues in this game. So I've heard that there is the possibility that we could be looking at some windy weather conditions there, some wind gusts that can make it a little bit difficult. Patrick Mahomes, though, he can throw through a hurricane if he needed to with that arm strength, so I'm not too worried about him. We'll see if it affects Phillip Rivers at all, but on a Thursday night, even though this is a prime matchup, a matchup where a lot of different players could contribute here, I'm a little bit worried about the wide receivers. Now, if you're Tyreek Hill or Keenan Allen, you're starting. That doesn't matter. I don't care about that. Those two are going to be starting no matter what. So get them in your lineup. The wind is supposed to be crazy, though. So who else can we trust? Who else are we going to throw out there for wide receivers? There's no Gordon, no Melvin Gordon. It sounds like no Austin Eckler either. So Phillip Rivers is going to have to throw the ball to somebody, right? So they're going to have some more weapons out there. If I had to pick anybody, any wide receiver to have an impact in this game outside of Hill and outside of Keenan Allen, I'm actually going to pick Tyrell Williams. Now, I talked about the wind already, so the wind could be an issue, so that might hurt the deep ball a little bit. However, I think he provides the most upside between him and Mike Williams. Mike Williams is really a touchdown-dependent play for me these days. Tyrell Williams, he gets one big play, he returns some value for you. So I think he's going to be the guy that I go with outside of that. I know Chris Conley is a guy we talk about a lot because he does have that touchdown upside. It seems like he finds the end zone every single week when he has the opportunity. So he's played decently well. I'm not going to trust him on Thursday night, though. Not in a Thursday night game. I'm going to start my studs and maybe Tyrell Williams if it's a deeper league and I need some help. So those are a couple of guys that I would think about. But again, this matchup, it has the opportunity to disappoint a little bit, I think, in terms of fantasy production. Just because it is a short week, there is a lot of people banged up right now. I'm just staying calm with what I'm expecting out of that. So let's move on real quick here. Let's talk about on Saturday now, we have Houston at the New York Jets. So Houston at the New York Jets. I'm not starting any Jets this week. So any New York Jets that you might still be holding on to, I'm going to go ahead and toss them on the bench. Houston's defense is too good. I expect to see a lot of J.J. Watt and Jadeveon Clowney in the backfield all over Sam Darnold. So I'm not real interested in getting any New York Jets out in my lineup. So that's definitely not something that I'm doing. But when we look at Houston, obviously DeAndre Hopkins is a must start every single week. And then Demaryius Thomas, his name comes up every single week because I think we truly want to believe that he's going to get better at some point. He's just been too inconsistent for me. And if I'm playing in a matchup this week where I need a win to get into the championship round, I really don't want to toss someone in my lineup that's going to be inconsistent. So Demaryius Thomas is a guy that I'm going to keep on my bench this week. Even though it has the potential to offer some upside, he just hasn't been consistent enough for me. And that's not what I want to be sweating out watching this game, is seeing whether or not Demaryius Thomas gets a catch. Kiki Cutie, not someone I'm going to take a look at either. Continues to have hamstring issues and things like that. I saw his name pop up a few times actually on my Twitter feed today. Even if he's in the game, whatever it may be, I'm not going to be starting him. Cleveland at Denver, the other Saturday game. Denver's defense is really middle of the pack in terms of shutting down wide receivers. Really in the middle of fantasy points against for opposing wide receivers this year. So Denver's defense being in the middle of the pack. I'm going back to Jarvis Landry, especially in PPR leagues, coming off a huge week. Hopefully Baker Mayfield's going to be trusting him a little bit more. If that happens, then obviously he offers you that upside. I'm not going to go Antonio Callaway this week. I thought Antonio Callaway was a nice matchup last week. It didn't end up happening. Again, guy is way too inconsistent so far this year. I'm not going to trust him here in this matchup. Cleveland also middle of the road too, though. So Cleveland hasn't had a ton of help there. Sutton is good to go, though. I'm going to go ahead and fire up Sutton again this week. Again, disappointing week last week, but he's a guy that I'll go back to. Deshaun Hamilton, another person that's been brought up as well. PPR leagues, he's an interesting play, but he's not someone, again, that I'm trusting in week 15 heading into fantasy championships here. Not a guy that I want to throw out my lineup. So the only two that I'm really going with there, Jarvis Landry and Sutton is someone else that I'll go with. Cortland Sutton is another guy that I will go ahead and go with as well. Make sure you hit that like button, please. Hit that like button. Let's get a few more people in here watching. Drop your questions if you have them. We'll continue to cover a lot of these games. We'll go through every single one tonight. Arizona at Atlanta, first Sunday game here. Atlanta is giving up 25.47 points, the ninth most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers this year. Fire up Larry Fitzgerald this week. Christian Kirk, obviously he's done for the season. Larry Fitzgerald, I think, is a decent play. He's going to have the opportunity to score some points this week. I'm okay with getting him out there. Only Julio for Atlanta, though. I'm not going to go with Calvin Ridley this week. Arizona, even though they haven't been great this year in terms of stopping the pass, they've been better. Patrick Peterson will more than likely be on Julio, but I'm not going to trust Calvin Ridley this week either, so I'm not going with him. Detroit at Buffalo, another game here. This is a game where I'm not really trusting anybody all over the place. I even said it last night on the running back show that I wasn't trusting any of the wide receiver, or I wasn't trusting any of the running backs. Tonight, I'm not trusting any wide receivers either. I'm not going to play Kenny Golladay this week. And that hurts to say because I love Kenny Golladay. But I'm not going to play him this week. Buffalo, 17.69 points to opposing wide receivers this year. That is second best in the league. So Kenny Golladay, I expect to see him shut down again this week. And then the Buffalo wide receivers, they're just too risky for me. Is it going to be Foster? Is it going to be Jones? Allen isn't a trustworthy passer yet. I don't want to say quarterback because in terms of being a quarterback, he has been better this year. So I am, in terms of a quarterback, he has been better over the last several weeks, in terms of just being a threat overall. Josh Allen can move on the ground a little bit, and that's really what's propped him up. But last week he was the QB6, and he had 2 interceptions and no touchdowns through the air. And that just goes to show you that his inconsistencies of a passer can come back to hurt you a little bit. So I'm not going to trust any of the Buffalo wide receivers this week as well. So we're going to shut that game down completely. We're going to keep all of those guys on the bench. Green Bay at Chicago. For Chicago, I'm going to start Allen Robinson, and I'm going to start Anthony Miller this week. And if you are in a deeper league and you need a flex play, I think Taylor Gabriel is another guy to take a look at. Green Bay giving up 27.51 points to opposing wide receivers. That is third most in the league. Devontae Adams, obviously, is a must-start every single week, so get him in your lineup if you have him. Randall Cobb is a risky play this week. He's a risky flex, I think. The opportunity is there, but I am not going to run him out against a pretty decent Chicago defense that just shut down the Los Angeles Rams. So let's keep Randall Cobb on our bench unless we absolutely have to have somebody. You probably could end up having some better options available to you, though. So work your waiver wire a little bit if you still need to do that. I see some questions popping up here. Just everyone to keep in mind that we're only talking wide receivers on this show. So I am seeing some running backs. If you have running back questions, we did have a running back show that I dropped last night. Please check out that video. And then, of course, Jake and I will be here, RotoBaller Game Day on Sundays from 12 to 1 to answer all of your questions as well. So that's where we'll talk more running back than wide receiver. Moving on to Oakland at Cincinnati, Jordy Nelson, I think, is a possible flex play for teams this week because, honestly, who else? Who else besides Jared Cook? Jared Cook is the only guy there that's really making any sort of an impact in the passing game. Jalen Richard, really up and down. It seems like one game he'll have 10 catches. One game he'll have 10 catches. The next game he'll have none. And that's not something I want to throw out there. So I think that Jordy Nelson is a decent flex play against a Cincinnati team. Again, middle of the pack in terms of stopping the pass. So not a team that's going to overwhelm Derek Carr. Cincinnati, though, going to fire up Tyler Boyd. John Ross is only an emergency, like an absolute, like deep emergency play. That's it. That's the only reason I'm going to fire up John Ross. I get some questions about him because he has scored some touchdowns in recent weeks. But even with that, they're really short touchdowns. Seems like all of his touchdowns have come in the red zone, actually within like the 10-yard line. So, Cool Rick wants to know Josh Gordon or Robert Woods. I'm going to go with Robert Woods. I'll talk about him more in a minute here. TTV Jewish 101, Mike Evans or Julian Edelman. I'm going to go Mike Evans in that huge wide receiver one upside that he has every single week, even though you can probably say he's not nearly as trustworthy as he used to be. C-Mac, T.Y. Hilton, or Diggs. I'm going to go with T.Y. Hilton this week. I think T.Y. Hilton is the guy that you start every week if you have them. They're playing Dallas. We'll talk about that one in a second. But with Minnesota, you get Miami. It's a little bit better matchup. Again, we'll talk about that here in a minute. But I think I'd rather go with T.Y. Hilton at this point. Let's see, Tyler Boyd or Sutton or Alshon Jeffrey. I'm going to go with Tyler Boyd. I'll go with Tyler Boyd there. KC from the D, Gordon or Boyd. I'm going to go with Boyd as well. And we'll get to some more questions here in a minute. Want to toss out some more of these games, though. Just talked about Oakland and Cincinnati. Cross that one off the list. Dallas at Indianapolis. Amari Cooper is the only Dallas wide receiver I'm going to start. He's must start at this point, though. Hashtag always Amari. Jake is not here to talk about it, so I won't bore you too much with my Amari talk. Amari's a must start, though, every single week. Indianapolis, though, has only given up 12.98 points over the last 4 weeks to opposing wide receivers. That is the best in the league. So I don't think we're going to see 10 catches for 200 yards this week, but I definitely think because of the volume, because of game flow, I definitely think Amari Cooper could end up still being a solid wide receiver, too. And then Hilton is my only Indianapolis wide receiver I'm going to start. Dallas giving up 18.16 points to opposing wide receivers. That's third best on the season this year. So I'll go with T.Y. Hilton. But this has the makings of a good defensive game, which is not something that probably you would have thought several weeks ago. But the Indianapolis defense is playing much better. Dallas's defense is on fire. This, I think, is going to end up being a fun game to watch. George D. asking, do I play Galladay this week? Just talked about him a couple of minutes ago. No, you do not. Lance lastly wanted to know if you play Devontae Adams or Cooper. Even though I love Cooper, going Devontae Adams there. JXHE17 going with the hashtag Never Pooper made up by my man Jake. JXHE17, even Jake at this point has given in a little bit and said that Cooper is a guy that we need to give more value to moving forward. So I don't think he's doing hashtags anymore for him. One other question here. Jeremy Miller, Zay Jones, or Ridley. I'll go with Ridley this week. Even though I don't love the Ridley play, I will go with him over Jones. Matt Thorpe wants to know Larry Fitzgerald or DJ Moore. We'll talk a little bit more about DJ Moore here in a few minutes. But DJ Moore is a guy that I want to play as well this week. Next matchup here, Miami at Minnesota. Not going with any Miami wide receivers this week. Minnesota giving up 18.48 points to opposing wide receivers this week or this year. That is the fifth lowest in the league. Thielen and Diggs must starts though. So really quick one there. Nothing else really to talk about except for those guys. That's what I'm doing in that game there. Tennessee at the New York Giants. OBJ is the only guy that I'm playing in this game. Odell Beckham Jr. is the only guy that I am going to run out this week just because I don't love this matchup for either team. Corey Davis is not a guy that I want to have out there. Was talking with a coworker today about Corey Davis who asked me if he should put him in his lineup, and I told him no because it's either he scores single-digit points or he has a huge game, and he's had way more single-digit output than he has big games this year, so I don't trust him this week. Oscar asking if I've already talked about Damian Williams and Justin Jackson. I have on the running back show, which was posted yesterday. So, Oscar, you'll have to check out that show. Not talking about running backs here, only wide receivers. Washington at Jacksonville, no Washington wide receivers. And then D.D. Westbrook or Dante Moncrief. Interesting flex options this week. Depends on how risky you want to be, though. Okay, so again, we talked about this several times already. In week 15, when we're getting ready to run into the fantasy championships, when we need a must-win this week, obviously, to move forward, I'm not going to throw out a whole lot of guys into my lineup that just haven't been consistent all season. I will look for some potential high upside plays, but I want to be safe this week. I want to make sure that I put my best lineup out there because I'd much rather get beat by playing safe guys than I would get beat playing a bunch of high upside guys that just absolutely throw out zeros and don't do anything. So that's what I will go. So with those two, you want to see how trustworthy you get. Interesting flex options. Washington giving up the 6th most points to opposing wide receivers this year, 26.27 points per game. So while the potential is there for either of those guys, it's really going to be who gets in the end zone on any given week. That can be either of those guys. So it's really flip a coin and see which one is going to end up giving you the better week. Tampa Bay at Baltimore. Baltimore giving up the 4th fewest points to opposing wide receivers, just over 16 points per game. I'm not starting any Baltimore wide receivers in this juicy matchup, though. So you look at Tampa Bay, who's giving up 26.32 points per game, 5th most in the league, and you think to yourself, I got to throw some Baltimore wide receivers out there, right? I got to get a few guys out there, either hashtag Never Crabtree. Do we go John Brown? Do we go Willie Snead? I'm not going with any of them because the inconsistencies are just way too much at this point. The run game has really been playing well so far, and Lamar Jackson seems to look at his tight ends more than his wide receivers. So even though I like Lamar Jackson in this matchup, even though I like Kenneth Dixon in this matchup, I don't like any of the wide receivers. So let's not get cute with Baltimore this week. We're not going to start any of them. The one thing with Tampa Bay, Mike Evans is a must start. D-Jax, obviously, if Deshaun Jackson isn't playing, then Godwin becomes a must start, even though we didn't get a great game out of him last week. I still think he bounces back this week against Baltimore. Tough defense, but Godwin and Tampa Bay sling it enough that you could be getting some juicy matchup there. And then I'm not going to go with Adam Humphries this week. I'm going to go ahead and leave Adam Humphries out of my lineup. He's been a solid play the last few weeks, a guy that going into the week we all thought would have good weeks. I'm not looking at it this week. Jonathan, bro, you killing me. Why am I killing you, Jonathan? You gotta let me know. And why is your wife gonna kill you? Why is everybody killing you right now? You gotta tell me what's up over there. Let me go ahead and cross that one off the list. Let's talk about Seattle and San Francisco next. Tyler Lockett, a must start this week for me. King Coolin brings it up right there. Tyler, perfect timing, King. King Coolin bringing up Tyler Lockett, Pettis, Bruce Ellington, full PPR. Need to go Lockett and Pettis. Guys, I'm going to talk about right here. Tyler Lockett is a must start. Then David Moore, I believe, is a must start after that. If Doug Baldwin is playing, then I probably pull the David Moore hype in just a little bit more. But I'm not going to just throw David Moore out there with Doug Baldwin. And even if Doug Baldwin plays, I'm probably going to put Doug Baldwin on my bench. Even though San Francisco is giving up 26.73 points to opposing wide receivers, that's 4th most. Tyler Lockett is in for the huge night there. Dante Pettis is also a must start for me, even though Seattle's defense has been playing much better as of late, and they were all over Minnesota this past week. Seattle is giving up 25.14 points to opposing wide receivers. That is 11th most in the league. And Dante Pettis absolutely burned Seattle a couple of weeks ago for a huge game, a couple of touchdowns, huge yardage up in the 170s. So I'm going to go ahead and start Dante Pettis this week as well. New England at Pittsburgh, the usual suspects, Edelman, Josh Gordon, Antonio Brown. I mean, we know what we're getting out of those guys. Those are the guys that we're going with there. Not a whole lot to talk about. Joshua wants to know Pettis over Moore. Well, I'm getting ready to talk about Moore here in a couple of minutes. I will go back through and grab some of these questions. I'm going to get through the rest of these games here real quick, and then we will talk about some more questions in just a moment. Philadelphia at the Los Angeles Rams. Cooks and Woods are legit low-end wide receiver 1s, high-end wide receiver 2s for me this week. I'm going to use Josh Reynolds as a flex in deeper leagues or in a league where I might be a little bit more thin at the position, he has touchdown upside. Philadelphia giving up 27.64 points to opposing wide receivers, second most in the league. And I'm sitting all my Eagles. Carson Wentz sounds like he's done for the year at this point. Nick Foles, I know he led him on that magical run last year, but I'm not going to trust him this year. He just didn't look good to start the season. I don't want to throw anybody out here in Week 15. So Alshon Jeffrey, Golden Tate, I'm sitting those guys on the bench. I mean, if this was the tight end video, we talk a little bit more about Zach Ertz, but it's not. So I'm not going to start any of their wide receivers. Persistent Patriot asking D.D. Westbrook or Curtis Samuels. Curtis Samuels easy, and we'll talk about that right now. New Orleans at Carolina. DJ Moore and Curtis Samuels are must starts for me. New Orleans allowing the most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers in the league this week, giving up the most points of any team in the league this year. New Orleans, funny enough, the only wide receiver I'm actually going to start from New Orleans is Michael Thomas. Let's not get cute with Traquan Smith or Kirkwood or any of these guys that we think might have touchdown upside. I'll go with Michael Thomas, but that is it. Carolina is giving up 25.98 points to opposing wide receivers, 8th most in the league. But this is not a situation where I'm going to get into trying to get cute and start multiple guys from New Orleans, because it's Michael Thomas and then it's just who's ever open after that. So I'm not going to go with anybody else at this point, even though the matchup is good. Curtis Samuel, DJ Moore are guys that I must start, though. C-Mac, he wants to know Julian Edelman or T.Y. Hilton. I'm still going T.Y. Hilton at this point. Really like him on a weekly basis. Been playing much better. I got to go with him, though. Touchdown upside is always there with him. John's asking about running backs. John, sorry, not talking about running backs tonight. Make sure you check out our running back show that dropped yesterday, though. D.D. Westbrook or Curtis Samuels. I already answered that for Persistent Patriot. That's definitely Curtis Samuels for me. Eric Gershitz wants to know, pick two, please. Hilton, Diggs, and Pettis. Even though I like Pettis, Hilton and Diggs, start your studs. Tyler Boyd or DJ Moore. I'll go with, that's a tough one, Teresa. I like Tyler Boyd. I like DJ Moore. DJ Moore probably has more upside in this week for me, and Tyler Boyd is probably a safer play. So it really depends on what your matchup looks like. If your matchup looks like one in which you're maybe you're already down, so after the games that take place, maybe Thursday and Saturday headed into Sunday, if you're already down, or it looks like you're projected to lose, or there's a large projection gap that you have to try and make up, then I'm going to go with DJ Moore because I think he offers you the highest upside. But if you're projected to win and you really just need a safe play this week, then I think Tyler Boyd is going to be the safest play of the two. Tander wants to know, he's got a Mike Evans question here, even though it does have some running backs in there. Jalen Samuels, Justin Jackson, Mike Evans. Go with Mike Evans. Kyle the Grateful, you must be a cool dude. I heard Kyle's are really awesome. You're asking also wide receiver, running back mix here. McGuire, Damian Williams, Pettis, or Curtis Samuels in the flex. Curtis Samuels for me there. Jonathan, okay, so he's nervous because he doesn't know if he should be starting Hill. If Hill plays, Hill starts. That's what I'm going with. Paul wants to know Pettis or Samuel. Definitely going to go Samuel there. Niner Empire 415 wants to know Landry or Lockett. I am going to go Lockett. Colin in asking about Amari Cooper or Justin Jackson as a flex. That is Amari Cooper for me. JXHE17, Cooper, ceiling, or Woods, floor. Man, I tell you what, JXHE17, that's a tough one because on any other week, more than likely, I would probably go with Amari Cooper here. But I think Woods' matchup is much better. So I'm going to go with Woods this week. The Cooper ceiling is always there, but I'm going to go with Woods. Kels22 wants to know Kenny Galladay or Hamilton in PPR. Ooh, I don't like that. Kels22, check your waivers, okay? If waivers haven't processed yet, check into those. And if waivers have processed, find out who else is out there. Hit me up on Twitter, okay? Hit me up on Twitter if you need some help picking out a flex this week at KRich1532. Follow me and we'll talk about it. But I don't like either of those plays that much. Persistent Patriot, sit Kenny Galladay. Yes, yep, sit Kenny Galladay this week. Again, though, I don't want to sit him for Deshaun Hamilton, though. So that's why I'm looking at it. David Ellie wants to know Lockett over DJ Moore. Yes, I'm going to go Lockett. Eric wants to know Josh Gordon, Curtis Samuel, are Mark Ingram in the flex. I'm going to go with Curtis Samuel. I like Curtis Samuel this week. Mossstrap 1379, Curtis Samuel or Jordan Nelson. Go with Curtis Samuel. Let me scroll back down here. Sutton or Pettis in standard. I'll go with Pettis over Sutton this week. Am I worried? Adam wants to know if I'm worried about Tyreek's heel. I am worried about it. Obviously, if he's been having issues this week, and if at one point he made it sound like he was extremely hurt or having a lot of issues, yeah, I'm going to have some worry about it. But if he's playing, I'm going to put him out there. A legit wide receiver 1, a top 3, 4, 5 tight end wide receiver. If he's playing, he is out there. Paul, am I going to sit Mike Evans? I'm not sitting Mike Evans unless I really truly have another wide receiver to start over him. So it depends on what you have on your bench. Siva wants to know Sutton or Aaron Jones. I'm going to go with Sutton this week over Aaron Jones. I talked about Aaron Jones on the running back show last night. Sit him. King said, thanks for the Hill answer. No problem, man. Kenny Galladay or Hamilton? Kel's already asked that. I don't like that one. We'll talk about that if you can hit me up on Twitter. Persistent Patreon, I spent my last $33 on waivers for Curtis Samuel this week because Galladay sucks. No, I don't think Galladay sucks. I just haven't liked the matchup. So Persistent Patreon, I think that was $33 well spent. Nenek wants to know Sutton or Hamilton. I'm going to go with Sutton. Or Corey Davis versus the Giants. We're not going with Corey Davis. Go with Sutton here. Thumbs up for Let It Flow, JXHE17. I'm not going to let it flow tonight, man. We don't have nearly enough people watching right now. You guys typically don't expect these live shows, so I'm sure there's a lot of people who didn't expect me to be dropping live shows in the middle of the night here. Typically, those are only on Sundays and then Monday nights. So caught some people off guard. So I appreciate you asking, but there will be no Let It Flow tonight. But please still hit that like button, and obviously we'll let it flow on Sunday. And I just have to let you guys know too, as well, real quick. I just found out a little bit ago. So I do weekly rankings for RotoBaller, but I also submit those to Fantasy Pros, where there's over 140 different fantasy experts, gurus, whatever you want to, analysts that you want to call them, that submit rankings each week. And I finished as the number 9 overall ranker last week. So I was pretty excited about that. Rankings are a little bit different this year than I've done them in the past. I actually have never done weekly rankings before this year. I've done different tiers and start and sits and things, but I've never done rankings. So had a bad start to the season, didn't do nearly as well in the rankings as I would have liked to have done. But the one thing that doing these rankings this year has taught me is that you just need to believe in yourself. You need to go with your gut. You don't always have to go with the consensus. You have to go with what you feel like you've done, as long as you put a good process into it. So finishing in the top 10 last week is really, really awesome. So I'm pretty pumped about that. My highest finish before that was 24th in a week this year. So being in the top 10 is pretty cool. So I appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. I'm still seeing a few questions pop in here. Jouts wants to know sit 2 or start 2, sit 1, Samuel Landry or Reynolds. I'll start Samuel and Landry. Mikkel wants to know or Odell or Lockett. I'll go with Odell still. Have to go with OBJ. But I appreciate everyone tuning in to this show of the Roto Revolution. If you have questions about a running back or, wide receiver that you want to start, hit me up on Twitter about that, okay? Like I said, we're a little bit short-staffed at RotoBaller this week because we've got a lot of people who are switching over to doing baseball now, so we don't have nearly as many people helping with the comments, so I'll try to get to as many comments as possible. But hit me up on Twitter at krich1532. I'm on that constantly, so you can get through to me. I'm actually, when I get done here, I'm going to be definitely answering a lot of questions that I've had come in today. So hit me up over on Twitter. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at krich1532. If you like the show, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're a new viewer, would really appreciate it. And make sure this is the last show of the week, so make sure you check us out on Sunday from 12 to 1. Jake and I will be hosting RotoBaller Game Day right here on the RotoBaller YouTube channel. Appreciate everybody again. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you later. Have a good one.